Facebook's role in our public life and how he thinks about screens for his kids. What did you learn from the New Zealand experience a few weeks back?
Yeah, I mean, that was a really terrible event.
Just last month, a terrorist in Christchurch, New Zealand, live-streamed on Facebook just as he began a shooting attack that left 50 dead. Facebook was criticized for how long the video took to come down from the platform.
So the live video itself was seen about 200 times while it was live. Most of those, it seems, were from people in a different online community off Facebook that this terrorist basically told that he was about to go do this. So they went, and a lot of those views were copying the video so that way they could upload it a lot of times. So one of the big takeaways from that is we need to build our systems to be able to identify live stream terror events more quickly as it's happening, which is a terrible thing.
Would a delay help? Any delay of live streaming?
It might in this case, but it would also fundamentally break what live streaming is for people. You're not just broadcasting, you're communicating and people are commenting back. But one of the things that this flagged for me overall was the extent to which bad actors are going to try to get around our systems.
Do you think that social media has made acts of extreme violence more prevalent?
It's hard to say. I think that's going to be something that's studied for a long time. I certainly haven't seen data that would suggest that it has, and I think that the hope is that by giving everyone a voice, you're creating a broader diversity of views. Certainly, though, this is why I care so much about issues like policing harmful content and hate speech. Right? I don't want our work to be something that gets towards amplifying really negative stereotypes or promoting hate.
And while Facebook focuses on new systems to keep the platform safe, they are also working on improving privacy for their users.
In our physical lives, we have public spaces like the town square or other public spaces, and we have private spaces like our living room. And I think in our digital lives, we need both too. When I look at the landscape right now, the digital equivalent of that living room, it's underdeveloped.
Let me challenge that idea on the town square. I know that's the idea behind Facebook. As someone who spends the bulk of my professional life dealing with politics and news, it seems like one of the problems on social media is exactly the opposite. Rather than being a town square, you actually engage people who have different ideas. It seems like social media drives you just to be reinforced on views you already have. It hardens up everybody.
I want to weigh in on what he's saying right there in response to too much open platform of media. I know this is going to sound probably like an oxymoron in regard to what I'm fixing to say, but the more that the media, regardless whether it's mainstream media or social media, focuses in on the problem that has erupted down on the southern border, the more that it feeds the beast in alerting various people, either in Mexico or in South America in various countries, the more that it brings awareness to America and to the benefits of living in America, and the more that it helps to embrace people towards committing an act of going out of their way and walking for endless amount of miles just to be able to get to the land of the free. In other words, it becomes the problem of itself. Instead of the media being the solution to the problem, the media becomes the problem because it's bringing all the awareness to people that never would have been aware of even thinking about going to America. And now because of all the talk, it's escalating. It's dominoes. It's dominoing. It's expanding to where if we would have kept it under wraps to the point that there wouldn't have been a lot of talk about it, maybe the problem that we're facing right now down on the southern border would not be there to begin with. And I know a lot of people will say, well, doesn't that infringe upon to our First Amendment rights towards freedom of speech? Yes and no. And the reason why I say that is because there was a movie a long time ago about a man that was abusing his wife, that I think the movie was called The Burning Bed or something like that. They claim that there was several incidences that happened in the nation that night because it imposed an ideal, a thought in the various women's minds that was going through similar situations, to the point that they themselves reenacted what that they had seen that night. So these seeds of dimension, these seeds of deformation, these seeds of extreme can now seek off into the minds of the weak, and the next thing you know, they start being adventurous towards fulfilling their fantasy of what that they have seen or heard about. So whenever it comes to policing freedom of speech, it's just like anything else. One bad apple spoils the whole bunch. And whenever you have a bunch of bad actors that don't know how to conduct themselves in a positive form, whenever you have all these hate-mongering, speech-murmuring people out there that want to continue to bring hostility and hate and bitterness to people's lives, then is whenever we have to engage in governing that in which what we have been exposed to. It's kind of like, well, yeah, we have the Second Amendment towards the right to bear arms, or the Fourth Amendment, whatever amendment it is, the right to bear arms, but there's only certain people that qualify to be able to have that amendment. That's based around whether or not you have went through all the somersaults and cartwheels pertaining to being examined, looked at, crossed all the T's and dotted all the I's. We live in a society now to where it can basically eat its own. It can consume its own. And these modern day inventions, devices that are being brought out to society are bringing just as much harm into humanity and into society as it is good. Kind of like texting and driving, or texting and doing other things that you shouldn't be doing at the same time. You got certain people out there that does not know how to differentiate the difference between what that they should be doing during the time that they're doing it, based around safety concerns. And then you got a certain amount of people out there that just don't care. Well, the people out there that don't care is going to make it extremely hard for the people that already do know to care. And the reason why is because there's too many automobile accidents that's engaged on people texting and driving at the same time, which is, I guess, now illegal on a federal scale across the board in all states. To where whenever they first invented the invention of the smartphone, no one thought that through. No one thought that out. So we're going through these barriers of archways that are based around modern day society inventions that 10, 12, 15, 20 years ago we didn't have to talk about because they'd never been discovered. Let's listen to some more of this interview.
You know, most of the research that I've seen actually suggests the opposite.
Really?
Right? Yeah, because, well, think about it this way. You know, if you watch a TV station, right? And that's your main one, or you read a couple of newspapers, and those are your main ones. Those have certain editorial points of view and consistency. Whereas if you have 200 friends on social media, you're probably going to be friends with people, even if most of your friends are Democrats or Republicans or one religion or another religion. You're going to have some friends who aren't.
You've mentioned a couple of times the experiences over the last couple of years. How surprised were you by the hits Facebook took?
Well, more surprised than I should have been. I'm a very idealistic person, right? I built this because I believe that giving everyone a voice is going to be a positive thing. But I think now I have a little more awareness that if you're serving 2 billion people, you're going to see a lot of amazing things that people are capable of, but you're also going to see people try to abuse those systems.
Final question. I know your dad now as well. I have 2 little girls. I have 2 girls. And this is something my wife and I talk about all the time. Do you worry about your kids and screens?
I think it depends on what they're using them for. There's a lot of research that shows that when people are using the internet and social networks to really interact and connect with other people, then that's a positive thing. When I'm traveling, I can see my kids, and that's great, right? I think that that's really important. But one of the things that I'm very mindful of is to make sure that the services that we're building help to create meaningful interactions between people, and not just a place where people can zone out and consume content for a long time.
And all of us parents know that's the real challenge right there.
He's willing to face the questions.
He is coming out right now. He knows they've taken some hits in the last couple of years, but he's determined to show the country and the world that he's addressing them.
Great interview.
Let's go over to Lara.
Thank you, George. Time now for Deals and Steals, everybody.
Remarkable.
I have a 3-year-old daughter, Bella, and she loves her art.
Will you show us?
I
Look at
absolutely
that. You're
do.
so organized, Jacob.
Co-rise with the crayons. Bella, you're a wild child. I love you, but this has made life a lot better in the car.
What we're having is communication barriers
George W. Bush.
that are being pushed to the max, and it is causing clashes throughout not only our own culture here in America, but throughout the world. And if we don't watch these culture clashes that I'm talking about, because of so much open Facebook media platforms, could actually result in something horrendous whenever it comes to the authorities that are engaged in serious matters in all countries. And this is the part that the American authorities have been caught off guard. They have basically been surprised by so much, not only entertainment, but weaponizing these type of inventions, similar to what went on over in New Zealand, where the guy actually live streamed his massacres during the time that he was doing that. So it's pretty obvious that this invention that has now occurred here in the 21st century, that has basically exploded in leaps and bounds, is in fact going to have to be governed or policed in some sort of way. In ending of what I want to say here today to my viewers, I have one final thing that I want to say. If you read the book of Revelations, in which a lot of you have several different times, if you'll go into there where it talks about the 2 witnesses, and it gets further in depth about their involvement of what that they're supposed to correspond with in the last days. you will read on into Revelations where it talks about how that they loved not their lives unto death, and that they held the testimonies in their hands. God showed me that these inventions that we're now dibbly-dabbling around in pertaining to smartphones and other related inventions was foreseen even during the time that the book of Revelations come into an existence, give or take about 70 years after Jesus come into the world. John the Revelator on the island of Patmos wrote these things. During the time that he wrote these things, he was still living in a primitive land, primitive ways of life, primitive thinking, primitive exploration involving that culture. You have to ask yourself a question, or I have. Whenever it talks about how that they will hold the testimonies in their hands, how can one hold his or her testimony in their hand if it was put either on stone or in paper form? It would be virtually impossible for them to hold their testimonies in their hands, especially if they had a long, lengthy testimony. And a lot of people do. I personally have a long, lengthy testimony of the occurrences that has happened in my life. For me to put my testimony all on paper, I would have to have an encyclopedia size volume of books that would weight me down to the point that I wouldn't be able to correspond properly to society, because I would be too overloaded with my testimony. So the point that I'm trying to make is this: the smartphones, the instruments that we hold in our hands, the inventions, have now come full circle in regard to the testimony that it speaks about there in Revelations. For they loved not their lives unto death, for they held their testimonies in their hands. The very instrument or invention of whatever platform that one may decide he or she to use is in fact their testimony. And now we have reached the point that we can courteously, professionally, and with all ease hold our testimonies in our hands. I just wanted to bring that to the forefront in regard to these new inventions that have suddenly appeared within the past few years, I guess 7, 8, 10 years, that these are all part of a fulfillment of biblical Bible prophecy. Thanks again to my viewers, and good luck to all of us. Shalom.
Advice. And we're going to get to this movie, it's an amazing movie, in just a second, but it's Thursday, so we did a little digging, went back to some high school senior year photos, and we came up with these two for you guys. And they have a question.
Oh, man.
How long did it take to do the hair in the morning?
Wow. Mine or hers?
Both.
It took me a minute. It took me a minute. That was before wigs, honey. That's all my hair. And it was like 4 different hairstyles on one head.
And Sam, how about you?
3 hours at least, yeah.
Oh, you got to get up early for that, man.
Yeah.
And before, you guys were fans of each other long before you teamed up to do this movie.
That's
and,
right.
and I remember you said you knew you would have, you two just get along, you have chemistry after you saw Taraji and Hustle and Flow. How did you know that?
I don't know, I just something about her. And we met through my girlfriend Leslie Bibb, and we went to a bar in Brooklyn and hung out, and we decided we want to work together. So I was kind of chasing after Taraji for a while, and then this thing came up, and we just, did it.
He says, I thought it would be a rom-com. I said, well, this is sort of a rom-com.
That's right.
But you've been a fan of Sam's for years. So how was it for you when you finally met?
I fanned out totally when Lisa told me. Leslie. Ha! Leslie, he's not cheating, I promise. No, Leslie, when she told me who her boyfriend was, I was like, I totally fanned out. And I was like, you have to introduce us. I am such a fan of his. And I finally finished, and I usually, most shows or movies I'm on, I try to keep in touch, but I really kept in touch because I had to meet him.
Yeah.
And I came back to New York, and we hung out at the bar. We put it out in the universe.
And it happened.
And it happened.
And it happened for the better of all of us, because this movie, it's the best of enemies, and it's based on civil rights activist Ann Atwater and C.P. Ellis, who was the head of the KKK. But they both ended up co-chairing a committee for school segregation in Durham, North Carolina, and back in 1971. And they became close friends afterwards. They stayed in touch, so much so that they were actually here on GMA back in 1980. Yeah. And there they are right there. Yeah.
Oh, man.
Look at that.
So how much did you two know about this story and this project before you signed on?
I knew nothing. I thought it was fiction. I thought it was fictional. And I started Googling, and I saw there had been plays, and I saw they were real people, and I saw the documentary, and I was like, wow, this is going to be great. And I just literally, I wanted to do it because I feel like we need it.
Yeah, me too. I was just knocked over by the story. I saw the documentary, and it blew me away. I was like, I couldn't believe it was real. And then I read the script,
And C.P. Ellis, he passed away in 2005, and Ann Atwater passed away in 2016. But she knew this movie was being made. She knew you were going to play her, and she was so proud and happy that you were going to play her in this movie.
Very excited.
Yes,
Very excited.
How does that make you feel?
It made me feel, I wouldn't do it if she didn't want me to do it. So it just, it made me feel good that I was honored that she wanted me to, that she trusted her story in my hands, and that the pressure was to get it right.
Yeah.
She left a voicemail on the director's phone, right, about Taraji, how excited
She's
she
happy
was.
the cookie lady's playing her.
The cookie, okay. The cookie lady. Well, we have a look at a clip. You guys want to see a clip? Yeah. All right. Here's a clip of the best of enemies. Check it out.
That gun don't belong here.
I like to have it close in case I need to do my talking for me.
This here does the talking for me.
I have a Bible.
Oh, you do? Have you read it?
Of course I read it. And we go to church on Sundays.
Well, then you ought to know, CP.
No, what?
Same God made you, made me.
I'll tell you what. You two You disappear in whatever roles that you're playing. And I know it must have been tough to get to the headspace of C.P. Ellis.
Yeah.
But how were you able to do that?
Well, I actually, this one was heavy because I just wasn't brought up that way. So I talked to this ex-neo-Nazi who now pulls people out of hate groups, a guy named Christian Picciolini. I hope I pronounced that right. And he told me it's not so much that you hate brown people, black people, gay people, Jewish people, it's that you hate yourself. And so that was something that I could tap into and kind of and sort of identify with, because we've all had bad days and can relate to that.
Absolutely. And so on a movie like this with a heavy topic, but how do you lighten things up on set?
Good question. Well, there was a lot of levity on set, actually. We had to kind of have that because it was such a heavy topic.
We play music and we act silly in between takes. I work in a way that I can turn it on and off. I can't sit in the characters too long. I have enough of my own issues to deal with, and to carry my issues and the characters' issues home with me, I would be nuts. So I literally turn it on and off. I literally could be in a scene crying, then you're cutting. I'm like, yeah, so last night. I swear I do it. And people come to say, and they're like, is she real?
Right, but you know what? That's why you both are talented at what you do.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's why you both are so enamored with that. And Taraji, before we go, of course, we love you as the cookie lady on Empire.
Yes.
But you guys have been going through a lot over there. So how's everybody doing?
We're good. We're good. We're actually all on vacation right now.
That's
Well, I'm supposed to be, but here I am working.
But that's why you are the star you are.
Thank you.
All right. I love having you both there. This is a fantastic movie. And Sam, thank you so much, man. The Best of Enemies is in theaters tomorrow. And coming up, Kate Hudson is here live. So don't go anywhere.
As a Success Vision team member, I get to provide customers with a great eyewear experience. And when our customers buy from us, they enable the Success Vision team to travel around the world to provide free eye care to those that need it most.